Hello, and welcome to the AI Marketing Transformation Podcast, hosted by Miguel Machado, CEO and co-founder of OG.ai and Keenfolks, an AI marketing transformation agency. In each episode, we dive into the key challenges and opportunities in marketing, content, and customer experience, exploring how AI integration can drive impactful business results. Hear from top marketing leaders as they share how global brands leverage AI and data to elevate their marketing strategies and customer connections. If you're eager to innovate and stay ahead of industry trends, subscribe and join the AI marketing transformation community.
Welcome to the 10th episode of the AI Marketing Transformation Podcast. Today, we have a distinguished guest who has been at the forefront of marketing analytics, data science, and AI long before it became mainstream, Chris Penn. Chris is the co-founder and chief data scientist at Trust Insights, a 7-time IBM champion in IBM Data and AI, co-host of the award-winning Marketing Over Coffee podcast, and author of a pioneering books on AI like AI for Marketers. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So it's wonderful to have you here, Chris. Before we dive into the AI specifics of AI agents and AI global developments, I would love to understand a bit about your journey. You've been working with AI since 2013, well before the current wave of generative AI and AI. How did you first become involved with artificial intelligence in marketing?
So I started in 2013 working at a public relations firm. And one of the challenges, I've been doing analytics in 2005 when Google bought this company called Urchin and gave it away for free as a product called Google Analytics. And that was a great tool. It was easy to use. But when I got to the PR firm, one of the challenges they had was that there's so much other interference and noise and ads running, emails going, and all this stuff. And the PR firm was like, we want to know the impact of PR despite all this noise. The only way to get to that was through statistics. And at the time, the current thinking at the time was like, well, we need to go beyond regular statistics to what's called uplift modeling, which used machine learning. And so I had to learn to code because there was no generative AI. And I had to teach myself how to implement uplift modeling within the R programming language, which is an open source derivative of SPSS. And so that was my start, was to say, okay, I got to learn this stuff so that I can get an answer to the people who are saying, like, we need to know the impact of PR on, all the regular marketing metrics, despite all this extra noise.
Yeah. So building on what you've shared, I'm actually curious about the transition many companies are making. I think that you are talking something that it's really pioneering at that time. So obviously working with different models, very, very handcrafted, let's put it between commas, for organizations that are still in the early ages, in early stages of transformation, but today that have all these resources at hand. What are the practical steps you recommend they take to begin effectively implementing AI transformation, AI agents, and all the waves that they have at their availability?
Well, first we should take a pause and step back and talk about agents, because there's a lot of people and a lot of companies who are, slinging around agentic AI as the latest hot thing, not really understanding what the words coming out of their mouths actually mean. And a lot of vendors using it as an excuse to just add more zeros onto your bill. So there's 3 layers of generative AI in particular, but of all tech, right there. And it goes with the product market fit matrix, which is there's done by you, which is when you do all the work. There's done with you, where there's assistance, and then there's done for you, where the stuff just happens. An agent is a piece of software at that highest level of it's done for you. You, the human, are not there. So we've had agents since the 1960s. The first agent was built in 1963. An agent is any piece of software that runs without you there. So your antivirus software that you've had running on your computer forever, that is agent-based. There's agents in the background looking at your documents saying, hey, that looks like it's got a virus in it, right? Every time you go to a cafe and you turn on your phone's Wi-Fi and connect to the Wi-Fi, there's 4 different agents, like a DNS responder, a BGP responder, et cetera, to connect you to the Wi-Fi. You're not involved with that, other than saying, connect to Wi-Fi. You don't do any of that work. So those are agents. With AI, you start with workflows, right? Where you, the human, are copy pasting in and out of Chat GPT or whatever, and you're just trying to do stuff, and it's all you. You're there, you're the one doing all the work. Then you get to automations where things like custom GPTs in Chat GPT, where you maybe all the system instructions and the background documents are loaded into this GPT, and then you just somewhat participate, but a lot of the heavy lifting's been done for you. That's an automation. An agent is where the software is doing things by itself. The human is not in the loop anymore. And when people talk about like how do we implement AI agents, well, the first question is, what are you already using generative AI for today that is a good candidate for removing the human from it? And then when you look at it from that lens, you're like, oh, there's actually not a lot of tasks where you would feel comfortable removing people entirely from, because you want people there for a lot of that stuff, and it's kind of can be kind of messy if you don't. So people like, oh, we have vibe marketing and vibe coding where the agents are going to do everything. You have to have a lot of prerequisites in place and a lot of current workflows that work well, that are battle tested before you even consider agents. And so that would be my advice for anyone who's like really excited about agents. Like, start at the bottom, make sure that you have workflows that work reliably, that work when models change. So, for example, OpenAI just released a new version of GPT 4.0. A lot of things broke. A lot of people's GPTs broke because the model's different. Google just released Gemini 2.5. The best performing state-of-the-art model on the market today. Prompts that work in Gemini 2 don't work in Gemini 2.5. They behave very differently. It's a totally different architecture under the hood. So a big part of evolving towards AI agents is saying, is the foundation good before you start trying to take people out of the process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is actually amazing advice for any company that is starting this road, and it's very strategic as well. So uh, to any CMO, okay, that is starting to look at this, or CTO, and they want to approach it, I would say, in a strategic way. Uh, where do you see the biggest value? In low value activities or in high value activities? Where would you focus more, and what would be your foundational approach to AI transformation to any company that is starting?
First, you have to ask if transformation is necessary. So transformation means literally transform, change forms. I'll give you a fun example. In 1937, this company started called Mitsubishi in Seoul. It was under Japanese occupation at the time. It is now called Korea. And Mitsubishi sold dried fish and seaweed, and they were an export company. Once the Japanese were driven out, and the war ended, and the Korea got split. The founders decided they were going to change the name of the company back to its Korean pronunciation and change businesses, transform. And today, the Mitsubishi, which is a Japanese name, pronounced in Korean is pronounced Samsung, right? So today, you don't go to Samsung for fish and seaweed. You go to Samsung for electronics and appliances and all these other things. That's a total transformation. There was a company, for speaking of podcasts, back in the early 2000s called Odeo, very popular in podcasting at the time, was a podcast aggregator. They had an internal communications tool that they gave away to the public called Twitter, and it superseded Odeo just got left in the dust, and Jack Dorsey said Twitter's going to be our thing. That was a transformation. So when we're talking about CMOs and CEOs in the C-suite and transformation, the first question is your current business failing? If what you're doing today is not working at all, then yes, transformation is probably called for. However, if your problems fall in the big four, and the big four are scale, speed, quality, what's the fourth one? It's bigger, better, faster, cheaper is what it is. If you can't be made, if what's wrong can't be fixed by bigger, better, faster, cheaper, then yes, you need transformation. But most companies, if you sit down and do stuff like your BCG growth share matrix or fit matrix, you could say, yeah, you know what? Bigger, better, faster, cheaper really is the problem. Customers want more and want to pay less for it. How do we give that to them? You don't need a transformation. You just need to get better at doing what you do. If bigger, better, faster, cheaper doesn't make customers happier and more loyal and spend more, then you need a transformation. AI just makes things more complicated, right? It's extra noise on top of the fundamental problem, which is your business broken? Once you figure that out, then you can say, okay, generative AI tools, here's our business. Here's what our customers really want. Maybe here's a competitor that's kicking our ass. How do we figure out how to do an end run around it or go in a different direction? Because maybe that's where the market is going. So, if you were a company that in 1920 selling horses, you're like, can we get a bigger, better, faster horse? Maybe. Or we could pivot and start making these, horseless carriages instead.
Hmm. Now that's a very interesting point, Chris. But all the CMOs and all the CTOs right now see these metrics popping up. No, I think that there was no time where a company like Facebook comes and says in a clear way, I'm going to take off 5% of my engineers because right now we have an AI process that somehow substitute the need that I have. Or for example, Salesforce. So we are increasing sales on 12%, but we are keeping the same team. So all the C-suite is listening to that, and obviously all they are challenged by tariffs and policies and all of that, and they are thinking, okay, there is this bucket, amazing bucket of opportunity, and how I tap into it. So, and there is the willingness to transform. So how you connect that with that perspective that you are saying that is like an option to not transform.
Well, so the question is, if you want bigger, better, faster, cheaper, which is not a transformation, you can use AI to get there, right? So obviously, generative AI can get you faster, considerably faster, is probably one of its biggest advantages. And it can get you, in some cases, cheaper if profit is your primary motive. You can, because there are companies that are like, yeah, we're going to ditch 60% of our employees. I actually had a CEO tell me to my face, yeah, my goal with AI is to get rid of 60% of my employees because they're dead weight and I don't want to pay them anymore. Like, okay, that's kind of an inhumane way of looking at things. But you're profit motivated first. I get it, and yes, you can use AI to do that. Will there be consequences? Sure. If enough people do that, there are no customers anymore because no one has any money to buy anything. But that's a macroeconomic problem. Um, can you get bigger? Yes. In marketing, in particular, you can use these tools to transform and change content into every other form of content you can imagine. You can make content smaller. You can make it bigger. You can synthesize it. There's all these different ways you can do this. But you have to first figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve before AI is entered into the conversation. Because again, most people don't understand AI as a technology. They don't understand what's capable of. They don't understand its limitations. They assume it's kind of like a genie from a fairy tale. Like, oh, just rub the lamp and things happen. Like, no, it's not that. So the question is, what problems are you trying to solve? And then you have to be very good at process decomposition to take a task, split it into its component tasks, and then say, okay, which pieces of these components is AI good at? We hand off those parts to it, and then the parts that it's not good at, you have to create infrastructure, deterministic infrastructure to support it. This is where agents come into play, because a good chunk of an agent is deterministic stuff, like grab data from a database or push data, something to a Slack update that sits outside of what AI does. And if you are not good at process decomposition, you will fail at making these agents. It will be a hot mess.
Yeah, those are excellent recommendations, and I think that it should you should have also a pause for reflection. And I think that what you are saying is like, okay, look, let's look to the foundational elements of the company. Let's look at the data set. Let's look at the processes and the workflows. Let's look at the team that you have, because sometimes it can be an easy change. Sometimes it can be a change that takes more time, and that actually, instead of giving profit, it has as well some negative impact. So I understand perfectly that. I think that in our last podcast, Nicolas Baban was actually talking about the same perspective on bringing the infrastructure first. But let's say that you already have that. Where would you start from a company point of view?
I would start with the process decomposition. I would say what processes do you have right now? Which ones are the biggest laggards based on your internal KPIs? Decompose the processes and say where can we inject AI to meet or exceed your current quality, but dramatically speed things up. Because again, AI is really good at making things faster. Now, as is the case with all computation, right? AI will make your existing mistakes much faster, so you can make bigger mistakes faster if you're not well aligned. But that's where I would start is to say, what's got your hair on fire? What are the business problems that are you've got a problem with? And then is generative AI the right tool? In a lot of cases, it's not. So, for example, in marketing, if you're like, why isn't my marketing working? You might need classical AI. You might need a marketing mix model to understand the contribution of different channels. You might need like machine learning based attribution analysis to understand which channel has the greatest impact on conversion. You can't do that with generative AI. Generative AI does not do that. It can write the code to do that, but you, the human, and more classical tools are the way you're going to get to those answers because generative AI, one of its biggest weaknesses is it sucks at math because math does not work the way language works. And most of our tools are language tools. So that's where I would start. What's broken? What answers do you need to understand how to fix it? Then decompose the solution and then start picking the pieces that you're going to have AI handle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Chris. So let's have a little open a little bit the scope. Obviously, when we talk about AI, we connect directly with US. It's direct. Now we think about OpenAI, we think about Google. Well, we think about all of the main agents in the AI biggest wave that we have seen. But looking at the global picture beyond the US and most recently China that get the headlines now. Uh, we are seeing interesting AI developments from countries like France with Mistral AI, Korea with Naver, and significant investments from the UAE. Also, European Union came to launch the 200 billion AI program. Let's see if we can actually go fast enough to catch up. But how might this diversification reshape the global AI landscape in ways most marketers or governments aren't considering right now?
So that's a good question. And the answer is that you need to take a little bit of a world tour to understand what AI is doing around the world because there is a ton of stuff happening. Now, yes, the US has probably the biggest mouths in it. China, so the the model maker that has gotten the most attention is DeepSeek, the DeepSeek company, which is based in Hangzhou. And what has been spectacular about what they've done is they've open sourced their model. They've just given it away. They just released their V3 model, the second revision of it, and it's very, very, very high performing. Supposedly, their new reasoning model R2 will be released in the next month or so. And it is expected to be state of the art as well. What is fascinating about DeepSeek is because they've given it away, any country that has data centers can download DeepSeek, maybe tune it to their own purposes, deploy it, and immediately they have state of the art AI. They can catch up like that immediately. So that is one of the most powerful things. It's one of the reasons why in the USA, all of the USA model makers are trying to spread as much fear, uncertainty, and doubt about DeepSeek as possible because they recognize their billions in revenue are going to evaporate immediately if people realize, oh, I can get a state of the art AI model and not pay Silicon Valley a dime and build my own infrastructure to support a DeepSeek. Even if DeepSeek never released another model, you would have 5 to 10 years of using the current version to be able to implement AI. But yeah, there's a lot more. So, for example, Canada, their top country is companies called Cohere, based in Toronto. They make the Command series of models. They just released Command A, which was a 110 billion parameter model, very high performance, very solid. In the UK, Stability AI is based in London. They make Stable Diffusion. Obviously, France has Mistral, the Mistral company. They just released Mistral Small 3.1, which is their multimodal model. Very smart, very good multilingual. Germany, head over into the western part near Stuttgart. You have Black Forest Labs. Their Flux One image generation models are absolutely fantastic. Head down to Tel Aviv. You have A121. They have Jurassic 2 and the Jamba model, which is their first mixed. It's a structured state model combined with a transformer. Super fascinating. You mentioned the UAE. Yeah, in Abu Dhabi, there's the Technology Innovation Institute. They have Falcon and that family of models. Keep going further south to Johannesburg, South Africa, and they have Lilapa AI and their model. I want to call it Vuvuzela. It's not. It's Vula, which speaks most of the sub-Saharan African languages, which is fascinating. Go east to Singapore, and you have Sea Lion, which is the Southeast Asian language model, which is tuned for things like Khmer and Burmese. You obviously have DeepSeek, but you also have Alibaba, the huge retailer. They have the Quen series and the QWQ models, very high performing, very small for their capabilities. Korea has Naver, but Korea also has LG, the company that makes refrigerators. They have Exa One. They just released Exa One Deep Thinking, which is their thinking model, 3.5 thinking. That version they've tuned for mobile devices because they make mobile devices, very high performance on a small device. Japan has Fujitsu, which made CPU-based LLMs, Fugaku. So there's all this AI happening around the world. And what's really fascinating is that other countries like India saw what happened with DeepSeek, said, hey, we don't need $500 billion of hardware to make a state-of-the-art model. We can do this too. And so now every country is getting into the AI arms race, if you will, to try and build models. I just gave a talk in Edmonton, Alberta, about how Alberta as a province could become an AI provider, a leader, by taking models like DeepSeek, building hosting, because they've got a great climate for data centers. It's super cold there. They don't need liquid cooling and a lot of fresh water to cool a data center. They just open the door and it's like minus 20 out. So this is reshaping the global AI landscape because it gives everybody options. You don't have to pay the OpenAI tax anymore, as much as Sam Altman would like you to. And every country is developing these models that are tuned for people and the problems in that country. And that's a great thing. We want to see more of that because it means that you are not beholden to any one tech company.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and the models are different between them. I'm sure that some of the CMOs that are listening, or CTOs, you're talking about DeepSeek and all these different models, and I think that the main concern pops up: privacy. What about privacy? Can I use it? Can I not use it? So, what would be your lens there? What would be your perspective and your recommendation?
So this is, again, part of Silicon Valley's campaign of fear against Chinese model makers. If you use a service that is hosted in the People's Republic of China, yeah, you have no privacy. So deepseek.com and DeepSeek the app, unsafe to use with private data. But they also say that in the privacy policy, they're pretty clear. Like, yeah, your data is being used. If you download the models and you run them on your hardware, they are as safe as the rest of your infrastructure, right? So, and there's literally 1.5 million models over on huggingface.com that you can download and run. Some of them will run on something as small as an iPhone. Some of them will run on something as large as a DGX cluster from NVIDIA. With generative AI, what the C-suite needs to realize is that you can download and run models yourself. You do not have to have a SaaS service. And in particular, you should not for protected healthcare information, sensitive financial information, and so on and so forth. You can buy a Mac Studio for 10 grand, set it up inside your office, load DeepSeek on it, and run it. and it's under your control. State-of-the-art AI, completely private. No data goes in or out. Like, you can even install Pocket Pal on your iPhone and run 4-6 billion parameter models and turn off the Wi-Fi. And they work just fine. I showed that at dinner the other night to some friends. That's what people need to realize, is that you do not have to use a tech provider. You can run these tools internally. And there's a million different great open source AI projects, EXO, VLLM, Llama CPP, Cobalt, LM Studio, that will allow you to do this. And once it's basically the cost of electricity to run it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So let me shift to your personal experience with AI implementation. So, what has been your most challenging moment in this journey since 2013? The moment that you say, okay, this is like really challenging, and how you overcome it. And I'm also curious about your personal AI tech stack today. What tools are you using today regularly, and what do you recommend?
So the biggest stuck moment is gathering the data you need to run AI successfully, because these models are smart, but hallucination, aka making things up, is part of their architecture. It is by design because they're probabilistic tools. So the more data you have that you bring, the less they have to make up on their own. So if you go to a model and say, hey, write me a blog post about B2B marketing, and you provide no other data, it's going to cobble together what it knows from its training data. If you bring your data and your knowledge and your point of view to the party, then it starts to work better. This morning, I was building a demo on how to do vibe marketing. And the hardest part is establishing the 6 to 8 documents that you need to have in advance to make it work, that are, 15 to 20 pages long each, just assembling the information. So the stuck moment, and the way to get unstuck, is to invest the time to build that information up front before you start trying to use the tools. In terms of my personal tech stack, I mean, there's so much stuff in it, which I don't know that all of it is super useful, but I can run through the list. Uh, Foundation tools, VS Codium is my favorite coding environment, along with Klein, which is an AI agent you run inside of it. SQLite, the database format, flat file database, super useful. Believe it or not, Thunderbird, the email client, because it stores all your email on disk, and AI can see those files and access them. So it's a great way to use AI with your email. Python, just the Python coding environment is required, right? Joplin is the note-keeping tool that I use, that I store prompts in and I organize them and have them available. In terms of AI hosting, I use Cobalt CPP to host my local models because it's phenomenal. I use Silly Tavern to chat with them in multi-user chats. I use, from a model perspective, I typically nowadays use Mistral Small for a lot of day-to-day stuff, and Gemma 3, Google's model. For graphics, I use Comfy UI and Flux One Dev, which are phenomenal models. In the cloud, Notebook LM is absolutely essential. Google's AI Studio, if you want to interact with the models directly with no safeties, that's a great place to do it. If you want to build for the enterprise, Google's Vertex AI. If you want to build in a system that has great compliance governance, IBM Watson X is my choice because it's bulletproof. Anthropic's Claude is excellent for the average non-technical person. And then on the audio side, I use Fireflies for transcription when I'm not using the local Whisper model. Fireflies does great speaker diarization. I use Refusion for music generation. And I use Maturing, which is a Python library that can take the mastering of one audio track and apply the mastering techniques to another audio track, which is just a lot of fun. And then there's a lot of infrastructure pieces as well that are not AI, but are super helpful. But the biggest thing that I find very powerful is having AI build your own tech stack. Right. So I have like 10 different utilities, like a website scraper and an email processor stuff, that I took with a generative AI model and a coding tool and said, here's what I want. Let's write a requirements document. Let's write a work plan. And then you build the code, and I'll sit here and sip my coffee and watch you code. And it builds and tests the technology. And so a lot of my tech stack is homegrown now. And you're seeing companies like Klarna, for example. Klarna said, we're canceling all of our SaaS subscriptions. We've used generative AI to just build our own CRM. Like they canceled $1.5 million a year Salesforce contract because like we built our own CRM. We don't need you anymore. And I think for the C-suite, that's a big, big attention, pay attention moment. Like you could build your own.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Same thing on automation. Some tool that you are using to connect all of the different stack and get workflows going. How you do it?
The framework that is generally accepted as one of the best is N8N because it's a low code connector environment, which is phenomenal. And you can run that locally. It's a very low resource. I have it running on a little server in my office here that's like this big. I've seen it actually run on a Raspberry Pi. Like that's how compact it is because it connects to APIs for everything. LangChain is a popular one. I don't particularly like LangChain. I think it's too rigid. AG2 AutoGen is a really good framework for that as well.
Amazing. So, for marketing professionals that actually seek genuine AI literacy behind the hype, no, which resource or learning approaches would you recommend based on what has helped you to stay ahead and rapidly evolving in the field?
Um, for marketers, I would suggest actually subscribing to my newsletter and the company newsletter and the Marketing AI Institute newsletter. Uh, that is not where I get my information. I do not look at other marketers because other marketers are years behind. I look at projects and code because that is where the truth of AI is always in the code itself, in what is being deployed. And so where I get my information is like the companies themselves, the tech companies. I go on. I follow hashtags on social networks to see what models are being released. I read academic papers on like archive.org to see what new techniques are being developed. So all of this stuff is where I go and get my raw information, and then I will take out the parts that I think are useful and share that with my community. Our Slack group, Analytics for Marketers, the Marketing AI Institute Slack, the Content Marketing World Slack, and Discord. Discord is where all the tech companies have their communities. So if you're in, for example, OpenAI's Discord server, you will find out sometimes hours before the release of something when something is available because they do the announcements in their channels first. So I think I've got 70 different Discord servers just to see what people are having to say about what they're deploying.
And any books, events, something specific that you would like to recommend?
No, because books, by the time it's written, it's out of date, right? I have given up writing books. Like I talked about like doing a fourth edition of my book. I'm like, by the time I write this, like literally the next day, it's out of date. Events, yes. So the Marketing AI Conference is an annual event put on by the Marketing AI Institute. I've spoken at every single one since the first one in 2019. It's an excellent event for marketers who want to learn about AI. For AI, look at tech events like IBM Think, for example, if you want to learn the actual hardcore tech itself. But marketing process B2B forum is a good event that has a lot of useful tech. Social media marketing world has an AI track now. I think they're going to call it like AI marketing world or something along those lines. But the reality is this: by the time you see it on stage, it's also out of date because there's a very good chance that the technology has just changed. So in the last 6 months, the biggest things to pay attention to are things like reasoning models. Like they have just dramatically changed how we use AI. True multimodal models, like ChatGPT just released a new version of its multimodal model. Gemini has a new version. Uh, but you want to pay attention to the big shifts that dramatically change functionality, like uh, the coding tools that are semi-autonomous coding tools. You can use those for marketing. This morning I ran it in Klein in VS Code. I gave it my background material. I gave it a work plan, and it just built an entire marketing strategy, 6 different documents, strategy, tactics, work plan per quarter by channel, and just gave me a big pile of documents. I just sat here and drank my coffee as it worked.
How much time you dedicate to that, like to experiment
To
new
actually
things?
run it itself
No,
was
during 1 week, how much time you dedicate to experiment, like new stuff?
probably 10 to 20 hours a week.
Great. So I think this is a good indicator for anybody that wants to really deep dive and get updated. So as we wrap up, let's recap some key insights from our conversation today with Chris Penn. First, Chris reminded us to start with the basics. Figure out what actually business problem you have before jumping into AI. If you actually can't break down your processes clearly, you will struggle to implement AI effectively. Second, Chris, open our eyes to what's happening globally. It's not just about the US anymore. With models like China's DeepSeek being openly shared, any country and company can now access powerful AI capabilities. And finally, his practical advice really resonated with me. Start small, make sure your models actually work before automating everything, and keep them updated. I think this is a very important point. So that's how actually we can build success with AI. Christopher, it has been great to have you in the show. So how can our listeners connect? I think that you already mentioned some ways to connect, but how they can connect with Chris Penn in an overall base.
The 2 places to go to trustinsights.ai, that's my company, and go to christopherspenn.com. That's my personal website. Those 2 places, everything else you'll connect to from those 2 hubs.
Fantastic. Chris, it has been really a privilege having you in the AI Marketing Transformation podcast. For our listeners who want to connect with you, I think that they already have a clear idea on how to do it, following Trust Insights and get to your webpage. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been a privilege having you on the AI Marketing Transformation podcast.
Thank you for having me.
For our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the AI Marketing Transformation podcast for more conversations with leading thinkers at the intersection of marketing, AI, and business transformation. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the AI Marketing Transformation Podcast. If you are a marketing leader who wants to tap into the most recent insights and innovative strategies in marketing and AI, be sure to subscribe. We appreciate your time and look forward to having you with us on the next episode.